Welcome back to another White Star Basics session here. Today we are going to be covering the civilian ships, I call them Civs, your miners, MS, and your transports, TS, and their general roles in a White Star. So again, to introduce myself, I'm Irons07, I'm a Red Star 11 player. I've been playing Hades Star for almost 3 years now, and we're going to just cover, again, some basics. There are some advanced topics in here that I may hint at, but in general, I'm trying to keep it simple and just give you an idea of what the purpose of why you would include a civilian ship, or meaning a transport or a miner, into a White Star. So I have an ongoing White Star at the moment. We're going to zoom in just a touch here. You can see again that there's an indicator here that I can jump in 0 additional battleships at the moment, and I can jump in 0 additional either transport or miner, one or the other, because I already have my 2 ships. Both of my ships. I have a battleship in the White Star at the moment, and I also have a transport actually at the moment inside the White Star. We're going to start with miners and why miners are important and what they will do. To actually demonstrate this, it's going to be a little bit easier, I think, if I take an earlier match. Our match is almost wrapping up day 4 here. Hopefully it'll be easier if I take on maybe a blank map for now, and then I can try and show, maybe I'll rewind our time machine and show you what it looks like when miners are up. So what you'll typically see with miners, what you want with a miner, you will typically have miners go out. Their whole purpose and goal is generally they will stick together, especially in early White Stars and even more advanced White Stars. They tend to stay together, and that's because they're easier to guard with your civilian guards. There's basically, you'll generally have a battleship or 2 or 3 or more that their whole duty is to escort and protect the civilian ships, the mining crews. In early White Stars, it's typical to only send out 1 mining group, but when you start to get into 10Vs and 15 player matches, you may do 2 separate mining teams or more, even more. There's not a right or wrong strategy here. There are just some benefits to lumping miners together, and mostly it's that they're easier to protect from attacking enemies. So miners generally, what are they doing? They're heading out, and they're trying to quickly pick up as much hydrogen on the map as they can, and they will drop it onto a relic planet. So we have a relic planet up here, relic planet over here, and finally another relic planet over here. And again, usually the map is mirrored, with the sole exception for this map for the P10. I do talk about the maps in a different video, but again, the goal, the miners are going out to pick up hydrogen. Why? They want to drop it on a planet so that it will generate more relics. Again, P1s, just as a recap here, this is a P1 up here. It looks like a desert. They take 500 hydrogen to generate a single relic and will naturally generate 1 relic every about 3 days. This is a planet 5 or a P5, level 5 planet. Again, it only takes 300 hydrogen this time, so 200 less to generate a relic. So it's more efficient if you're trying to get more relics. Obviously, better to use a P5 than a P1 because it takes fewer hydrogen to generate relics. You get more relics for the same hydrogen, and again generates the same rate, about 1 relic every 3 days. And finally, a P10, planet level 10. These will naturally generate 1 relic per day all on their own, but they only cost 150 additional hydrogen per additional relic. So these generate twice as many relics for the same hydrogen than a P5. So P10s, typically, as you could expect, they tend to be more towards the center of the map, or maybe not center, but they tend to be equidistant from both jump gates. Again, they tend to be highly contested. But so your miners, what are they doing? They're heading out and they're working together. Usually you're going into time machine here, and you're working together, and I covered the time machine a little bit more in a separate video. But what you're doing is you're programming in moves that you add through to move your miners through the White Star safely without forecasting or broadcasting your intentions to your enemy. You don't want your enemies to know that you're going to go from here to here to here to there to there to there. You could set all those waypoints, but obviously you wouldn't stop and mine if you did that. But if you set it in time machine and you travel from here to here, you can program in moves that allow you to, say, activate mining boost, which will speed up your mining, the rate at which you mine the hydrogen. You can program that in so your allies can see it, and they can also coordinate with you. And then once all the hydrogen's gone from a sector, you're able to move on to the next sector, all kind of as one cohesive unit. So time machine is absolutely critical. I have a separate video on time machine. Please check it out. But again, so mining, they're working together. They're trying to pick up hydrogen and even generate or create even more hydrogen and we'll talk about those just a little bit, so that you can obviously drop them, get more relics, at which point then we'll talk about transports and the retrieving of the relics. For now, though, I'm going to switch over and go into just basically the tech side. We're going to be just mostly looking at the technology for miners at the moment. You have Mining Boost, and you should be at least mildly familiar with most of these modules by now. If you're starting to play a Redstar, typically you're probably Redstar level 4 or higher when you really start getting into White Stars. Anything earlier than that, again, you probably don't have the shipyard, the capacity, the max number of ships you can have. You probably don't have enough to dedicate 2 whole ships to a White Star anything earlier than Redstar 4. Doesn't happen? Yes, but in general, most players will. You'll also notice on all the text that when it's applicable, miners obviously don't go to blue stars, but when you open the text, you can see for yellow star and red star values, you can see this would be blue star, but miners don't go to blue stars, so I can't even click on it. But white stars, you can also see, again, the effects that they have. So Mining Boost, again, simply speeds up your mining speed, very useful in a white star. Last 4 days and 4 hours. That is not under time warp, by the way. So again, a white star lasts 5 days. So the Mining Boost lasts most of it, except when you're under a time warp. So there are some advanced strategies about when to activate Mining Boost, when not to. Again, your commanders, check with them, or check out some of the advanced videos we may get to. But basically, again, Mining Boost, absolutely essential. There's so much hydrogen on the map. You'll have Mining Boost on most of the time, and you'll be picking up hydrogen as quickly as you can, because there is a time limit. There's only 5 days in a white star. And usually the first day or 2 or 3 are used in mining and dropping, and then the final day and a half to 2 days is used in retrieval of the relics. Mining Boost, very, very critical. Almost every miner should have Mining Boost equipped. I'm going to skip over Hydrogen Bay here and Enrich. We're going to go over to Remote Mining. Also, again, a very standard. Starting about Red Star 4, I believe, is when you can start unlocking it. Maybe Red Star 3 artifacts will have it. But Remote Mining, incredibly useful. Increases your mining speed. And just, again, very useful because there's multiple asteroids. You'll generally equip it so you can mine all the asteroids simultaneously. Virtually everyone will equip this. There's very few and rare instances I've seen when a miner will not equip remote mining. And we probably won't cover that in this video. But remote mining, also very, very useful. Oops. Next up, typical for entry-level white stars, you'll start to see uses of this is called Mining Unity, or as abbreviated as Munity, M-Unity. Mining Unity is particularly useful in a white star at low levels, specifically low levels, because you don't have very fast remote mining. Your technology is pretty weak. Your miner is also weaker. It's probably a level 1, 2, or 3 miner. When you start to get a miner level 6, you'll generally stop seeing Munity equipped as commonly, but it still has its uses. Again, applies a percentage bonus use per miner that's in the sector actively mining. So this really speeds up your mining. Very useful. Its primary use case you see in more advanced white stars. I mean, in basic ones, you'll use it and you'll see it right away, and you'll use it to quickly mine hydrogen. The downside with Munity really is it's a shorter duration, 2 days, 2 hours. Again, under a time warp, it's much quicker. So you only get a handful of sectors out of it before it expires, and then it's got a much longer cooldown. So it's got twice the cooldown duration. So again, you probably won't be able to activate it again unless you're under a heavy time warp and you use it right from the get-go. The primary use case in more higher level white stars is, and I talk about this in another video, but those 3,000 hydrogen spawns that'll come, those asteroids, those Munity handles very well. If you save your Munity towards then, you still have your Mining Boost or M Boost on. Very, very effective at quickly mining down those asteroids. Next up, you'll also see fairly common in lower level and even higher level is Crunch. Crunch, again, you can read the description here, but helps you finish off hydrogen or quickly void a sector. It's an immediate single use. You'll crunch it once. You'll see the cooldown is 300 days. Even under a time war 12, you will not be able to reuse Crunch from the same miner excuse me, let me say this again. You likely will not use this again unless you happen to jump your miner back out of the white star into your yellow star, at which point the cooldown is much faster, only 12 hours. Or you can also re-equip it outside the white star. But within the white star, it's generally a single-use mod. Again, use cases here, quickly voiding out asteroids. You can see I've got a very low level crunch here. It will allow me to immediately just go ahead and consume 350 hydrogen from asteroids. It is, as far as I'm aware, it is random which asteroids it will take it from. But obviously, if you have more crunch capacity than available hydrogen, it will take it all. So very useful if you're trying to remove waypoints from enemies. I've seen that happen before. Definitely used it in a defensive mode where I'll drop a miner into a sector, quickly crunch it to just remove opportunities for enemies to get in our way. But also very useful, very, very high levels. There's a few players I've played with that have very high level crunches. Very also useful for immediately capturing or taking out those 3,000 hydrogen. I don't know if max level crunch has what the max crunch ability is, but it does make a sizable dent. So very useful. Next up, a little bit more advanced here, you'll start to see these two mods come into play, Genesis and Rich. Genesis will spawn new asteroids. Again, I'm not going to go over exactly how it works or what it does, but you can use a Genesis on every sector on the map, except for your jump gates. Jump gates are excluded, but as you can see here, it does not work on jump gates and white stars, but all the other sectors, and then at least I assume, I've never tried, but I assume it would not also work on the star sector itself. But you'd use it to generate more asteroids, meaning more hydrogen. So you'd make my level 6, you'd make 4 asteroids worth total of 400 hydrogen. Useful for increasing how much hydrogen you have on the map that you can then drop on a planet. Again, you can use Genesis once per sector. There's a sector cooldown, and it's 5 days in a white star. In your yellow star, it is a different amount of time, but in a white star, it's 5 days. Enrich, this is the next one. Enrich is a percentage boost on all the hydrogen in a sector. It will apply it there, and it will obviously boost it. So at level 7, it's a 19% boost. So it's basically the math is, say this sector here should have 350 hydrogen. That times 1.19 or 19% increase here, I would have somewhere, again, I'm not going to do public math here, but more than 350 hydrogen would then exist in this sector. Enrich cooldowns per sector. You can see that the enrich sector cooldown is 1 day. And then the enrich itself is a 300-day cooldown. So when you're in the white star and you're traveling with it, you'll generally get to use it once. There are some advanced strategies, such as double enriching or even triple enriching sectors. I'm not going to cover that in this video, but those do exist. There are strategies here, and you'll see them as you get more and more advanced in your white stars. But very useful. You tend to save your enriches, your biggest enriches, for the rich hydrogen sectors, because you can take 3,000 hydrogen times 19% increase there. And it's a sizable amount of hydrogen that you'll receive out of it. Finally, probably the last two we'll talk about here for the most part. I mean, there are hydrogen rockets. Again, there's very rarely is it used because hydrogen is such a precious commodity in a white star, but they do sometimes see their uses in a white star, but generally not. We'll cover mining drone real quick here. Mining drone tends to be a very, very specific mod you'll use to target specific asteroids, because you have to send the mining drone specifically, or M drone specifically, to an asteroid. You'll typically have this run by people who are staying at gate, and they say they just wanted to remove specific locations, specific asteroid locations, without mining the entire sector. There are some advanced strategies like Relic Drone launching, which we will talk a little bit about later in this video, where you want to try and get around your jump gate sector. You want to try and Genesis an asteroid. Or if you're lucky, it'll sometimes naturally spawn very close to the edge, right along where your jump gate is. Useful for quick transports to move back and forth to launch their relic drones. And that's where mining drone can come into handy, where if you don't want the rest of these asteroids to exist for your enemy to attack and use as a waypoint, you can use mining drone. It is slow, but it does work. You can remove specific targeted asteroids that way. Final one minor topic or technology I'll cover here is around hydrogen bay extension, or HBE. Much like cargo bay extensions for your transports, HBE, it just increases the maximum amount of hydrogen your miner can carry. You generally won't start seeing this mod until much later. Typically around redstar 9, you'll start to really upgrade your hydrogen bay extension. As you can see, at the max level of 10, it adds an extra 2,000 carrying capacity to your miner. Very useful in a white star, especially when these hydrogen amounts are 3,000. So very, very useful to add to your base capacity. Pretty straightforward explanation there. All right, those are miners. Again, what you would typically see, low level, MS2, miner level 2 or 3, you will almost always equip, again, mining boost, remote mining, and then typically you'll either have immunity, even just a low level immunity is useful. Crunch, low level crunch has its uses. Enrich and Genesis, you'll start to get into a little bit later, red star 6 or 7. You won't use it typically for red stars specifically, but around that tech level, is where you will start researching Enrich and Genesis. And again, the point with those two specifically tends to be to increase the amount of hydrogen on the map that you can mine to then drop, so more relics. And then Genesis again has the ability to spawn relics, and you want them, or excuse me, spawn asteroids, in which you want them generally right around your jump gate. And there's specific use cases there. All right, next up, we'll move to transports. What do transports do? Transports, obviously, they're there to pick up the relics. So each relic will, the relics weigh, I want to say it's 4 tons. And so your transports can show up with cargo bay extension equipped, and you can load up the relics up to your maximum capacity. Now, that was very, very common and very, very true. That old style before, I want to say it was in 2021 or maybe even early 2022, there was an update to the game that introduced Relic Drones, which we'll talk quite a bit about because that is mostly how the game is played these days. Very rarely will you see transports on the map for much of anything. And the reason is the transports are slow for the most part. They're faster, obviously, than miners, but they're slower. They don't load relics as quickly as the Relic Drones do, and they also usually don't have as much capacity as a Relic Drone. There are obviously exceptions with that, but mostly it's the retrieval speed, the pickup speed. Relic Drones start to get very, very quick. The higher the level that the Relic Drone goes, it increases their ability to, they can carry more and they can load faster per relic. But we'll cover some basic transport mods that you will see. Again, cargo bay extension, pretty standard. Obviously, you need it so you can pick up. It adds more capacity to your ship, to your transports. Shipping computer doesn't really apply. Most of the other shipping mods do not apply. You can use, this is where I don't even know, Entrust. Entrust is usable in a White Star. You can basically transfer once you have a relic equipped on your ship. You can then transport it to another that has the capacity for it. We will talk about dispatch quite a bit, or maybe not quite a bit, but we'll hint at what it does and its uses. But dispatch can allow you to jump its use cases to, it'll teleport you more or less to the farthest away planet that has the most amount of relics. So it will first find the planet that has the most amount of relics on it, and then it will transport. If there's a tie, say this one has 1 relic and this one has 1 relic, and I'm here at my jump gate, instead of teleporting me here, it will teleport me there. Dispatch, obviously, there's a spool up time, as we call it, or activation time. So preparation time per item. In a White Star, this is per relic. So every relic on a planet takes my dispatch an additional 18 minutes. So at 1 relic on a planet, 18 minutes, 2, 36, and so on. I have a pretty high level dispatch. I believe 10 is the maximum, so I'm 1 off from the limit. So mine's pretty powerful at this point. But dispatch has its uses. Quickly get a transport to a planet. But the main thing, what you want to be doing here, is Relic Drones. Relic Drones are only used in a White Star. You can see they're disabled. You can't launch them in yellow stars, red stars, or blue stars. Their entire point is you will send them you'll launch them around your jump gate. Unfortunately, you cannot launch it from the jump gate, but around the jump gate. So that one, or say we'll come down here to this one. These sectors would be your key ones to use primarily, in which you'll send a transport out there with a Relic Drone equipped, and then you will activate it and send it to whatever target planet you wanted it to retrieve from. That drone will mindlessly travel a direct line to that planet. It will then park on the planet and start to load if there's available relics. Once the relics are done, or once there's no more relics on the planet, or it fills up its capacity, it will then depart the planet if it has a relic on it. It will depart the planet if the Relic Drone has a relic loaded, and there's no more to load. It will then depart and return back to the jump gate in a direct line. Relic Drones are really, really powerful, very, very common. You'll see them used a lot. And Relic Drones, as you level them, they get more relic capacity. So this, I have a max level Relic Drone module, so it will load 12 relics per Relic Drone, up to 48 capacity. They go faster as they load. They don't move faster. The transport time is the same, but how fast they load up a relic is faster. So for a transport to load, it is 4 hours per relic. For this, it is 1 hour and 40 minutes per relic, so much quicker. General strategy here, high level, is you will you'll generally have 1 or 2 or up to 3 or more if you need it. Dedicated players who will send transports in, they will jump them in, they will try and run to a nearby asteroid, and then they will usually teleport or use impulse, which is another model I'll talk about in just a moment, but they'll teleport back to the jump gate and they will activate their Relic Drone, because again, Relic Drones cannot be used inside the jump gate sector. So we'll quickly go ahead and head down and talk about teleport. Pretty standard. Maybe at Red Star 2 or 3 you haven't seen teleport yet, but it is exactly as it sounds. There's a slight spin up time or spool time. In a White Star it's 4 hours. There's an effective range, how wide your teleport can be. But you generally, in a transport usage, you'll generally, again, you'll be leaving the starting sector to then activate a module, typically a Relic Drone. You'll fling it off and then you'll teleport back because it's faster to teleport for the most part than it is to travel that same distance. So teleport's very useful, especially earlier in the game. The final one that you'll tend to see a lot with transports is Impulse. Impulse allows basically just rapidly increases the speed at which your transport or equipped ship will move. I want to say that the multiplier is 4 times, but don't quote me on that. You can check in Compendium, it will tell you. But Impulse is useful as if you get a really well-positioned asteroid from your jump gate, you can generally travel the entire time under Impulse to and from the asteroid from your jump gate to the asteroid and then back to your jump gate, allowing you to send off a drone and get your transport ship to and from the jump gate to jump back out to refresh its modules in Yellow Star. Fastest. This is currently the quickest way to do that. So that is the general capabilities of what a miner and a transport will do. For the most part, that is their uses. I'll cover just some other support mods that you'll tend to see on miners or that you'll see on transports, but typically these are mostly on miners again because transports will generally use one of 2 mods for the most part. They'll be using teleport or impulse to send relic drones. EMP, very useful, can be very useful. Again, it will stop. I've used EMP early in the game to stop mining drones or mining miners that are departing from one sector to the next. Say it's not safe in the next sector, an enemy is teleported in or something of that nature. You can use a EMP to stop your mining train. Very useful. Redstar, not useful. Remote repair, again, has its uses, rarely used. You'll see miners occasionally equipped with time warp. Again, that just speeds up everything. Useful for what it is. Not useful is Unity. You will see Sanctuary equipped a lot, especially in early and low-level miners. You'll see Sanctuary. Very common. Just means that if your ship dies in the White Star, it'll just immediately jump out to your jump gate, outside the jump gate into your Yellow Star, and you won't have to pay to rebuild it. Stealth, not really used. Fortified, definitely not used on a transport or on a miner. Impulse, again, we've covered already. Rockets are useful, but again, I won't cover that, kind of an advanced topic. Salvage, non-equipable, doesn't work. Suppress, again, has its uses for suppress. Destiny definitely has its uses on transports. There's a combination advanced technique, but I won't talk about it here. Barrier is one of those on miners and even transports. You will see barrier equipped often. Again, barriers are just useful to keep enemies off of your relic planet or out of a certain area so that you guys can safely proceed. Vengeance, it's not used on civilians. Again, missiles have their uses. Leap has its uses. Bond has its uses. Again, more advanced topics there. Laser turret, I've yet to see. Well, I have seen, I guess, civilians equip it, but not common. Alpha drone, again, has its uses. There are uses, especially on gate transports. That has its uses. Suspend. I have yet to actually see Suspend successfully played on a civilian, but there are use cases. Omega rockets and remote bombs. Again, remote bombs act a lot, and in similar ways, at least to rockets, except they're stationary. They do have uses on civilians, but not common. Again, common ones, you'll see EMP, teleport is very useful, even on miners. Impulse is useful. Time warp's common. Barrier's common, and at low levels, Sanctuary is the most common. All right, those are the basics on transports and miners. If you have any additional questions, reach out to me on Discord or here on YouTube, and we will look forward to talking to you next time.